Good afternoon, everyone. We are back for the number 6 session in this chapter 2 in the macroeconomic class that we're putting together for Fisk University. It's Econ 24001. We're going to talk about the last thing that they went through in chapter 2, and that's when they talk about economic systems. And basically what they're talking about economic systems, and especially on the PPC. So you're out there on that efficient frontier where it's concave and it's bowed out from the origin of the X and Y axis. You're setting out there on that efficient frontier, and that means, a couple of things. Somebody, as we've talked about somewhere, is making decisions to ensure that the factors of production are fully employed and that they're employed in such a way that they are optimizing the efficiency of those factors of production. And that's the nature of the economic system, is you want to ensure, especially from the efficiency perspective, that your scarce resources are being efficiently deployed within the production process. And they try to take and they break the economic system down on one end of that kind of that, I call it dichotomy, but on one end of the spectrum, you've got the market capitalist. On the other end, you've got kind of the command socialist. Command socialist, you're probably talking about, I don't know, Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela. Up on the capitalist side, the US, UK, I think Sweden's in there maybe, or maybe New Zealand, Singapore. And then you've got kind of this mixed economy in the middle where you've got capitalists at work, but you've also got a lot of regulation or regulatory aspects. And that's kind of where Sweden falls in, France, Germany, China and Russia have moved from kind of the being on the government, owned command socialist. They've moved more toward that mixed economy over the years. Russia, especially after the USSR folded, the Berlin Wall came down, China, you had Tiananmen Square. You just had a lot of factors impacting the rationale that moved Russia and China more into that mixed bag or that mixed economy. And basically what happens on the market, the one they call market capitalist, it's private individuals not only own the factors of production, but they get to make the decision. And you think about the United States, of all of the individuals, either mom and pop shops, small companies, large companies, huge conglomerates, are owning the factors of production, and president, board of directors, maybe CFOs are making those decisions on how those factors are deployed and how they're utilized. And it's being driven by free enterprise. It's being driven by profit. I have people that, ask me periodically, well, what about not-for-profit? Well, not-for-profit to me is more of a tax, justification, or more of a tax factor. Even not-for-profits, you've got to make a profit. If you can't make a profit, you're not going to stay in business, even for a not-for-profit. So again, it's more of a tax regulation for not-for-profit, but trust me, not-for-profits, and I've worked for not-for-profits, they are driven by having enough money in reserve to continue working 3, 5, 7, 10 years in the future. So they want to make money, and they want to make more than just normal rents. They may not make it to the point of making economic rents, but they want to make at least normal rents or better than normal rents. There's a global shift to the market capitalist. And why is that global shift? We've already been through some of it, China with Tiananmen Square, the issues they had in Hong Kong, the fall of USSR, Berlin Wall coming down, And it's driven by, individual liberty. People are vocal. They want, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. They want political, religious, economic freedom. Think of the early United States. Why did individuals from Western Europe migrate to the United States? It was because they wanted, political, religious, and economic freedoms. That's why the United States was founded, and that's why the population has grown over time. Market economies allocate factors in a comparative advantage, and that is what's going on, especially in the one that they call the market capitalist. We are trying to drive comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is going to make life better for everybody concerned within that market economy. And then it says, one thing that they talk about is the degree of economic freedom. Who owns the property, who controls the factors, who makes the decisions, who gets to enjoy the profits. That's going to determine where that country's economy is on this continuum between market capitalists and the command socialists. So that's what's going to drive it. And as they kind of wind things up in chapter 2, they get into one of the rationales is to why entrepreneurship is such a driver in the United States today. It's because the entrepreneur gets to enjoy the profits, the fruits of their labors, the hard work, the brain power, the ingenuity, the creativity that goes into the decisions that they make or the new products that they bring to market. They don't have to worry about that profit once outside of the tax system in the United States, but they're not taking and giving a huge chunk of that profit back to a state. It's not like Russia, China, even now that they're funding back to the state. Certainly not like Cuba, Korea, Venezuela, that a large part of that profit could theoretically go back to the state. So that pretty much wraps us up on this part of chapter 2. I guess there is one last thing that probably need to mention to people, and that is governments play a part in all market economies. We talked about it probably in chapter 1. There are scarce goods that generate profit that you have to make a decision on those, the opportunity cost associated with them. If one person's using a specific scarce good, then that means it probably can't be used by another individual. You've got free goods. They're non-excludable. They talk about the air, and then you've got the type of good that I pitched out there, and that's public goods. Goods that are provided by federal, state, regional, local governments, generally through taxation. And so it's these public goods, and the production of the public goods and the allocation and the distribution of those public goods is where the government comes in. And in most countries, governments are responsible for security, national defense, to some extent, provision of health care to certain populations. And, think about your local community, public schools, roads, interstates, sidewalks, street lights. All of those are public goods provided by a government via taxation. But they do play in this market economy sandbox, which is the capitalistic free enterprise. Probably play more in the sandbox in Germany and France, but they're still playing in the sandbox, United States, UK, New Zealand, definitely playing in the sandbox in North Korea and in Cuba. But it's going to depend on the government to continue to produce and determine the allocation of some goods and services, because either they are supplementing those that the private sector provides, or those services wouldn't be available if the government wasn't providing them. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's always going to be bureaucracy. There's always going to be government intervention at some level. But if it's managed correctly, it's a good thing because it's a value to the consuming population. And for the most part, it keeps us safe and keeps us somewhat satisfied. That kind of wraps it up for chapter 2. We will kind of move into, I think, chapter 3 talks about supply and demand, and that'll be our next section of videos. Hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.